The massive alien ship dropped out of hyperspace like a metal mountain appearing in the void. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could turn planets into dust. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought. His forearms crossed behind his back as he looked down at the small blue world below. Earth hung there in space like a marble, looking so peaceful and defenseless. "Another easy conquest," Kethver said to his tactical officer. The alien's voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "These humans still use chemical rockets to barely reach their own moon. Their weapons are primitive bullets and explosives. This will be over before their sun sets." The tactical officer nodded his reptilian head. "Shall we begin the bombardment, Admiral? Standard procedure is to destroy their major cities first to break their will to fight." Kethver waved one of his hands dismissively. "Not yet. First, we give them a chance to surrender. The Empire prefers intact worlds when possible. Slaves are more useful when their infrastructure remains standing." Down on Earth, deep beneath the Pentagon, General Jake Morrison stood in a room filled with screens and flashing lights. The Situation Room buzzed with activity as military officers from every branch of service worked at their stations. The alien ship had been detected the moment it entered the solar system. Just as they had planned and prepared for during the last 50 years, Colonel Lisa Hayes approached Morrison with a tablet in her hands. Her face was serious but calm. "Sir, the alien vessel is charging its primary weapons. Our satellites show energy buildup consistent with planetary bombardment systems. They're targeting New York, London, Moscow, and Beijing." Morrison nodded slowly. He had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Signal all units. Operation Laughingstock is now active. Tell our people it's time to show these visitors what human hospitality really looks like." Across the globe, hidden military bases received the coded message. In the Arctic Ocean, beneath miles of ice, Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of a submarine that officially did not exist. The vessel was 3 times larger than any submarine in the history books, powered by fusion reactors and armed with weapons that would make the aliens very unhappy. "You heard the general, boys," Mitchell announced to his crew over the intercom. "Time to welcome our new neighbors to the neighborhood. Prepare quantum torpedoes for launch. Target the alien ship's engines first." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, knowing that one day someone would come to Earth thinking humans were easy prey. Today was that day, and they were ready to prove how wrong the visitors were about human weakness. Back on the alien dreadnought, Admiral Kethver prepared to broadcast his surrender demands to the human government. This was always his favorite part of conquering a new world. He enjoyed watching the fear in primitive faces when they realized how outmatched they were. The Empire had conquered over 1,000 worlds this way, and not one species had ever dared to fight back after seeing their superior technology. "Open a channel to the planet's surface," he commanded. "Let me speak to whoever leads these creatures." The communications officer worked at his console for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Admiral, they're responding to our hail, but the signal is not coming from a government building or military base. It appears to be coming from a simple office building in their capital city." "Curious?" Kethver mused. "Perhaps their leaders are hiding underground like cowards." "No matter, put them on screen." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a simple room with wood paneling and an American flag in the corner. General Morrison appeared on screen, flanked by President Kate Sullivan and Secretary of Defense Paul Henderson. What surprised the alien admiral was that all 3 humans were smiling. Not the nervous smiles of frightened beings hoping for mercy, but the confident grins of people who knew something their enemy did not. "Welcome to Earth," Morrison said in a cheerful voice, as if he were greeting old friends instead of alien invaders. "I hope you brought your best ships and your bravest warriors, because we've been looking forward to this day for a very long time." Admiral Kethver felt his confidence waver slightly. This was not how conquered species usually behaved. They should be begging for their lives by now, not making jokes. I am Admiral Keffer of the Zephyrian Empire's 7th Fleet. Surrender. Immediately, or we will demonstrate why 1,000 worlds kneel before our might. President Sullivan actually laughed out loud at this threat. She was a small woman with silver hair, but her eyes held no fear whatsoever. 7th Fleet? How many fleets does your empire have, Admiral? 12 full battle fleets patrol our territory, Keffer replied, confused by the strange question. The 7th Fleet alone carries enough firepower to crack your planet's crust. That's, adorable, the President said, turning to Morrison. General, I think it's time to show our guests what we really think of their 7th Fleet. Morrison nodded and spoke into a small device on his wrist. All units decloak. Let them see what they're really up against. Suddenly, the Zephyrian ship's sensors went completely insane. Warning lights flashed red across every console on the bridge as the tactical officer shouted in panic. Admiral, ships are appearing everywhere. Dozens of vessels just materialized around our formation. How is this possible? Keffer stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Human warships had appeared from seemingly empty space, surrounding his mighty dreadnought like wolves circling wounded prey. The energy signatures his sensors detected made no sense. These ships were not the primitive vessels they had observed. From a distance, they were sleek, deadly, and clearly built for war. Commander Steve Parker's voice crackled over the com from the destroyer Freedom. All ships, this is Parker. Weapons are hot and targeting solutions are locked. Awaiting orders. To engage? The alien admiral's forearms trembled as he realized he had made a terrible mistake. These humans were not the helpless primitives his intelligence reports had described. They had been waiting, watching, and preparing for this moment. The trap had been perfectly set, and he had flown right into it like a fool. Admiral Keffer expected panic broadcasts from Earth within seconds of revealing his fleet's power. Instead, his communications officer reported something that made no sense at all. The humans were not surrendering or begging for mercy. They were actually requesting permission to demonstrate their own military capabilities. Sir, the human leader wants to show us something, the communications officer said with obvious confusion in his voice. They claim they have been preparing for our arrival for 50 Earth years. This was impossible. The Empire's intelligence network was the best in the galaxy. They had watched Earth for decades through long-range sensors and intercepted communications. The humans used primitive chemical rockets that barely reached their own moon. Their fastest ships took months to travel between their inner planets. Their weapons were simple, projectile firearms and chemical explosives that would be useless against modern armor. Put them back on screen, Keffer ordered. I want to hear what lies these primitives think will save them. General Morrison reappeared on the view screen, still wearing that infuriating smile. Behind him, President Sullivan was speaking quietly to several military officers who had joined them in the room. They all looked remarkably calm for people whose world was about to be destroyed. Admiral, before we begin our little dance, I'd like you to meet some friends of ours, Morrison said. Computer, show him the neighborhood welcoming committee. The alien bridge crew gasped in unison as their sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. Human warships were dropping their stealth systems one by one, revealing themselves like ghosts becoming solid. The vessels were enormous, far larger than anything in the Empire's databases about human technology. Captain Nicole Brady commanded the heavy cruiser Defiance, one of humanity's newest and most powerful warships. She had waited 3 years for this moment, hidden beyond Pluto's orbit with a full battle group of 20 ships. All units, this is Brady. Form up for assault formation. Our visitors are about to learn why nobody threatens humanity's homeworld. The Zephyrian tactical officer's voice cracked with fear as he read his instruments. Admiral, I'm counting over 200 human vessels. Their energy output suggests weapons and shields far beyond what we believed possible. This cannot be accurate, but it was accurate, and Admiral Keffer knew it. The Empire had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They had observed Earth from a distance and seen only what the humans wanted them to see. The primitive rockets and crude technology had been an elaborate deception, a mask hiding the true extent of human capabilities. Commander Danny Walsh opened a channel from his position aboard the stealth destroyer Ghost his ship had been following. The Zephyrian fleet, since they entered human space, invisible to their sensors. Admiral Morrison, we have full tactical data on the alien formation. Their shields are standard Empire technology, vulnerable to our new phasing torpedoes. Morrison nodded approvingly. The phasing torpedoes were one of humanity's newest weapons, designed specifically to counter alien shield technology after years of studying captured Empire equipment. Understood, Commander. All units are authorized to engage at will. Down on Earth's surface, Marine Colonel Chris Thompson watched alien drop pods falling toward major cities through his binoculars. The Zephyrians were attempting to land ground forces while their fleet dealt with the human ships in space. It was a sound tactical decision, but they had no idea what was waiting for them on the ground. Fire control, this is Thompson, he spoke into his radio. Target the incoming drop pods with orbital defense platforms. Show these lizards what happens when they try to invade our home. Hidden throughout Earth's orbit were dozens of weapons, platforms disguised as space debris and communication satellites. For 30 years, they had waited motionless, looking like harmless chunks of metal floating in space. Now they revealed their true purpose as massive particle beam weapons swiveled toward the alien landing craft. The first wave of drop pods simply vanished in brilliant flashes of light. The second wave suffered the same fate. Within minutes, the sky above Earth's major cities was clear of alien invaders, their ships reduced to glowing vapor by weapons the Empire had never encountered before. Back in space, the real battle was beginning. Captain Amanda Torres commanded the experimental vessel Paradigm, humanity's first ship equipped with quantum displacement drive. The technology allowed her ship to instantly teleport from one location to another, bypassing normal space entirely. Engaging quantum displacement, Torres announced to her crew. Target the alien flagship. Let's show them what happens when human scientists have 50 years to prepare. The Paradigm simply vanished from its position in the human formation and reappeared directly behind the Zephyrian dreadnought. The alien ship's shields were facing forward to protect against the human fleet, leaving its engines completely vulnerable to attack. Admiral Kethver spun around in shock as his damage control officer reported massive explosions along their engine sections. How did they get behind us? Our sensors show no ship movement in that direction. Sir, they appear to have teleported, the tactical officer replied with obvious disbelief in his voice. Their ship was 3,000 kilometers away 1 second and right behind us the next. This technology should be impossible. The science officer looked up from his instruments with all 4 eyes wide with terror. Admiral, they're not using any technology in our databases. These humans have somehow developed capabilities that bypass the normal laws of physics. Our computer models say what they just did cannot be done. But the humans had done it, and they were just getting started. Lieutenant Commander Joe Martinez led a boarding party onto a disabled Zephyrian cruiser that had been crippled by human railgun fire. The human soldiers moved through the alien ship like shadows, their powered armor adapting to match the surrounding walls and ceiling. The Zephyrian crew never saw them coming. One moment the aliens were manning their battle stations. The next they were unconscious on the deck with human soldiers standing over them. The boarding action was completed in less than 10 minutes. Resistance neutralized, Martinez reported to Admiral Morrison. These aliens fight like they've never encountered a species that actually shoots back. Their tactics are designed for fighting primitives who surrender after the first demonstration of force. Dr. Helen Chang monitored the battle from her secret laboratory beneath Nord Mountain. For decades, she had led the team developing countermeasures against Empire technology. They had studied every piece of alien equipment that fell into human hands, reverse-engineered their weapons and shields, and designed specific counters for each system. Their predictable tactics are working against them, she reported to the Pentagon Situation Room. They're using standard Empire battle formations that we've been studying for 30 years. Every move they make, we anticipated and prepared for. Admiral Kethvar watched helplessly as his mighty Seventh Fleet was systematically destroyed by human weapons that seemed like magic. Ships that should have been invincible were being torn apart by projectiles that phased through their shields. Vessels that had conquered 100 worlds were being outmaneuvered by human fighters that moved impossibly fast. "Signal the remaining ships," he ordered in defeat. "We withdraw immediately. Send a message to Empire Command. Tell them Earth is not what it appears to be." What Admiral Kethvar and the Zephyrian Empire had mistaken for a primitive world was actually humanity's greatest deception. For 50 years, ever since human deep space sensors first detected signs of the Empire's expansion toward Earth, humanity had been preparing for this exact moment. The crude rockets and simple technology were carefully maintained illusions designed to make potential invaders overconfident. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the human defense fleet from the bridge of the heavy battleship Vengeance. His tactical display showed the complete Zephyrian formation surrounded by human vessels that outgunned them by a ratio of 3-to-1. The aliens had flown directly into the most sophisticated military trap in human history. "All ships, this is Morrison," he announced over the fleet communication network. "Execute Operation Mousetrap. Show these invaders why nobody threatens humanity's home and lives to tell about it." The battle erupted across 3 dimensions as human warships attacked from every possible angle. Railguns fired tungsten projectiles at speeds approaching light itself, while particle beam weapons carved through alien armor like hot knives through butter. The Zephyrian energy weapons proved completely useless against human ablative armor that had been specifically designed to absorb and redirect their attacks. Captain Rick Brady commanded a squadron of human fighters that streaked through the alien formation like angry hornets. His small craft were too fast and maneuverable for the Zephyrian point defense systems, which had been designed to stop larger vessels moving in predictable patterns. The human fighters attacked from impossible angles, striking weak points that the aliens never thought to protect. "Fox Squadron, this is Brady," he called to his pilots over the radio. "Target their sensor arrays and communication systems. Blind them first, then go for the kill shots." Down on Earth's surface, Marine Colonel Chris Thompson had positioned his forces around every major city on the planet. Hidden missile batteries and energy weapons emerged from concealment as alien drop pods continued to fall from the sky. The Zephyrians were still trying to establish ground forces, unaware that their orbital fleet was being systematically destroyed above them. "All units, weapons free," Thompson ordered. "These lizards want to invade our home. Let's show them what happens when you pick a fight with United States Marines." The aliens never reached the ground alive. Surface-to-space missiles intercepted their drop pods while they were still in the upper atmosphere, turning invasion forces into expanding clouds of debris. The few craft that survived the missile barrage were destroyed by energy weapons that rose from hidden bunkers built specifically for this purpose. Captain Amanda Torres continued to demonstrate humanity's mastery of quantum physics aboard the experimental ship Paradigm. Her vessel could appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly, striking alien ships from impossible positions before disappearing again. The Zephyrians had no defense against weapons that could bypass space itself. "Quantum jump complete," Torres announced to her crew as they materialized inside a Zephyrian cruiser's shield bubble. "Fire all weapons at point-blank range. Let's see how their armor handles a full spread of antimatter torpedoes from the inside." The alien cruiser exploded from within, its hull splitting apart like a ripe fruit. The Zephyrian admiral could only watch in horror as ship after ship in his fleet suffered the same fate. These humans were using technology that his scientists claimed was impossible, weapons that ignored the fundamental laws of physics as the Empire understood them. Lieutenant Commander Joe Martinez led another boarding action, this time against the alien flagship itself. Human soldiers in powered armor teleported directly onto the Zephyrian bridge using personal quantum displacement devices. The alien crew found themselves facing armored warriors who appeared from thin air and moved like ghosts through their Defenses, bridge secured, Martinez reported as the last Zephyrian officer was stunned into unconsciousness. Admiral Morrison, we have control of the enemy flagship. Their computer systems are intact and ready for intelligence gathering. Dr. Helen Chang worked frantically in her underground laboratory, coordinating the human response from her position as the planet's leading expert on alien technology. Her team had spent decades preparing for this invasion, studying every piece of Empire equipment they could obtain through espionage and careful salvage operations. The aliens are completely unprepared for adaptive tactics, she reported to the Pentagon Command Center. Their entire military doctrine is based on fighting species that surrender after seeing a demonstration of superior firepower. They have no experience dealing with enemies who fight back intelligently. This was humanity's greatest advantage. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered over 1,000 worlds, but every single one of those victories had been achieved through intimidation, rather than actual combat. The aliens would arrive with overwhelming force, destroy a few cities to prove their power, and accept the inevitable surrender. They had never faced a species that refused to give up. Commander Betty Williams patrolled the edge of the solar system aboard the deep space vessel Ranger, watching for enemy reinforcements. Her long-range sensors detected hyperspace signatures approaching from the direction of Empire space. More alien fleets were coming, just as human intelligence had predicted they would. Admiral Morrison, this is Williams, she transmitted to the fleet commander. I'm reading 6 additional Empire battle groups jumping into the outer system. Looks like they brought friends to the party. Morrison smiled grimly as he received the report. This was exactly what they had hoped would happen. The Empire's standard response to unexpected resistance was to send more ships until the problem went away. Unfortunately for them, humanity had prepared for this possibility as well. All reserve fleets. This is Morrison, he announced on a different communication channel. Phase 2 is now active. Time to show these aliens that the ships they're fighting represent only a small fraction of human military capability. Throughout the solar system, hidden human battle groups began dropping their stealth systems and revealing themselves to Zephyrian sensors. What the aliens had thought was humanity's entire space fleet turned out to be less than 10% of their actual military strength. Hundreds of additional warships appeared on tactical displays, each one more advanced and dangerous than anything in the Empire's databases. Admiral Kethver stared at his tactical screens in complete disbelief as the scope of human military power became clear. His intelligence officers had reported that Earth possessed perhaps 50 primitive spacecraft. The reality was over 1,000 state-of-the-art warships equipped with weapons and technology that seemed like pure magic. How is this possible? He whispered to his science officer. Our long-range scans showed a primitive civilization that had barely reached their own moon. Where did all these ships come from? The science officer worked desperately at his console, trying to make sense of sensor data that contradicted everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. Admiral, I believe we have been systematically deceived for decades. The primitive technology we observed was a deliberate deception designed to make us underestimate their true capabilities. It was a masterpiece of strategic deception that had taken half a century to implement. While maintaining the appearance of a backward civilization, humanity had secretly built massive shipyards in the outer solar system and beyond. Their real space fleet had been constructed in hidden facilities that Empire sensors could never detect. Captain Nicole Brady coordinated the final phase of the human counterattack from her position aboard the destroyer Lightning. The Zephyrian fleet was completely surrounded and outnumbered by a ratio that made victory impossible. Their shields were failing under the assault of weapons specifically designed to counter Empire technology. All units, commence final assault, she ordered. Let's finish this quickly and send a clear message to the Empire. Earth is not for conquest. Admiral Kethver watched in growing terror as his supposedly invincible Seventh Fleet was being systematically dismantled by human technology that defied every law of physics his scientists understood. The Zephyrian weapons that had cracked the Crusts of planets were bouncing harmlessly off human armor that seemed to absorb and redirect energy rather than simply blocking it. "Sir, their projectile weapons are phasing through our shields as if they don't exist," his tactical officer reported, with panic clear in his voice. "Our defensive systems cannot stop weapons that bypass normal space entirely." The humans had indeed bypassed normal space, along with every other limitation that had constrained warfare for thousands of years. Captain Amanda Torres demonstrated this perfectly as she commanded the experimental vessel Paradigm through another impossible maneuver. Her ship simply vanished from one location and reappeared directly inside the defensive formation of 3 Zephyrian destroyers. "Quantum displacement complete," Torres announced to her crew with calm professionalism. "All weapons fire at will." Let's show these aliens what happens when human physicists have 50 years to play with the fundamental forces of reality. The Paradigm's weapons fired in all directions simultaneously, destroying all 3 enemy ships before they could react to its sudden appearance. The alien crews never even had time to sound an alarm before their vessels were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "Impossible," Admiral Kethver whispered as he watched the tactical display. "No species has ever achieved stable quantum tunneling on that scale. The energy requirements alone should be beyond any civilization that hasn't mastered stellar engineering." His science officer looked up from his instruments with all 4 eyes wide with something approaching religious terror. "Admiral, they're not using any technology in our databases or theoretical frameworks. These humans have somehow bypassed the standard technological development tree that every known species follows. They appear to have jumped directly from primitive chemical rockets to technologies we don't even have names for." This was exactly what had happened, though the aliens could never have guessed the true reason. Humanity's rapid technological advancement had been driven by 50 years of desperate preparation for exactly this kind of invasion. When faced with the certainty of eventual alien contact, human scientists had abandoned all normal research protocols and focused entirely on developing weapons and defenses that could defeat superior alien technology. Lieutenant Commander Joe Martinez led yet another boarding action, this time against a Zephyrian battlecruiser that had been disabled by human rail gunfire. His team of 20 soldiers moved through the alien ship like death incarnate, their powered armor's adaptive camouflage systems making them nearly invisible even in direct light. "Contact front," one of his sergeants reported over the squad communication network. 12 aliens armed with energy weapons, taking cover behind their bridge console. Martinez smiled behind his helmet's faceplate. "Engage Ghost Protocol? Let's show these lizards how human soldiers fight when they're properly equipped." The human soldiers simply faded from view as their armor systems analyzed the surrounding environment and matched it perfectly. To the alien defenders, it appeared that their enemies had simply vanished into thin air. The Zephyrian troops fired wildly at empty corridors while human soldiers moved among them like invisible angels of death. "Resistance neutralized," Martinez reported 60 seconds later. These aliens fight like they've never encountered a species that uses actual tactics. Their combat doctrine appears to be based entirely on technological superiority rather than military skill. This observation was more accurate than Martinez realized. The Zephyrian Empire had indeed built their entire military strategy around the assumption that superior technology would always defeat inferior technology. They had never developed sophisticated tactics because they had never needed them. Every species they encountered surrendered after seeing a demonstration of imperial firepower back on Earth. Dr. Helen Chang monitored the battle from her position as humanity's leading expert on alien technology and military capabilities. Her underground facility beneath NRAD had been tracking Empire expansion for decades, analyzing their tactics and developing specific countermeasures for their weapons and defensive systems. "Their predictability is working against them," she reported to Admiral Morrison over the secure communication link. "Every tactical decision they make follows standard Empire doctrine that we've been studying since before most of their officers. Were born, they're fighting yesterday's war against an enemy who has been preparing for tomorrow's conflict. The truth was even more devastating than Dr. Chang realized. Humanity had not just been preparing for this specific battle, they had been preparing for a war against the entire Zephyrian Empire. Every human weapon system had been designed with one purpose in mind: defeating alien technology that was centuries more advanced than anything Earth had possessed when the preparations began. Captain Nicole Brady commanded her fighter squadron through the heart of the alien formation, her small craft weaving between massive Zephyrian warships like hummingbirds, dancing around elephants. The alien point defense systems had been designed to stop large missiles and torpedo boats, not tiny fighters moving at speeds that approach the physical limits of their construction materials. Blue Squadron, form up for Attack Run 7. Brady called to her pilots. Target their primary reactor cores. Intelligence says they use unshielded fusion plants that should go critical if we hit them in just the right spot. The human fighters streaked toward their targets with suicidal courage, knowing that their small craft offered no protection if the aliens managed to score a direct hit. But they also knew that their sacrifice would cripple enemy ships that might otherwise threaten Earth's civilian population. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from his position aboard the battleship Vengeance, coordinating human forces across three-dimensional space with the skill of someone who had spent his entire career preparing for this exact scenario. His tactical display showed Zephyrian ships being destroyed faster than their crews could send distress signals back to Empire Command. "Signal all units," Morrison ordered. "Commence Phase 3 operations. It's time to show these invaders that the ships they're fighting represent only a fraction of our total military capability." Throughout the outer solar system, massive human battle groups that had been hiding in the shadows of asteroids and ice comets began revealing themselves to enemy sensors. Each group consisted of ships that were larger and more heavily armed than anything the Zephyrians had encountered during the initial engagement. Captain Steve Parker commanded one of these reserve fleets from his position aboard the super dreadnought Freedom. His ship alone carried more firepower than the entire Zephyrian 7 fleet, armed with weapons that could sterilize planets or crack moons in half with single shots. "All ships, this is Parker," he announced to his battle group. "We are authorized to engage with maximum force. Show these aliens why humanity is not to be trifled with." The reserve fleets opened fire simultaneously, launching weapons that crossed the distances between ships faster than the speed of light itself. Zephyrian vessels simply ceased to exist, as they were struck by projectiles that ignored the normal limitations of space and time. Admiral Kethver realized with growing horror that he had led his fleet into a trap so sophisticated and deadly that escape was probably impossible. The humans had not just prepared to defend their world, they had prepared to destroy any force that dared to threaten it. His mighty 7th Fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being methodically exterminated by an enemy that seemed to possess unlimited technological resources and absolutely no mercy for invaders. The last Zephyrian battleship exploded in a brilliant flash of light that briefly outshone the stars themselves. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his flagship as debris from what had once been the Empire's proudest fleet drifted through space like cosmic snowflakes. The Battle of Earth was over, and humanity had achieved a victory so complete that it would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the alien flagship," Communications Officer Danny Walsh reported. "The enemy commander is requesting permission to speak with you directly." Morrison nodded grimly. "Put him on screen. Let's hear what the mighty Zephyrian Empire has to say now that their 7th Fleet has been reduced to scrap metal." Admiral Kethver appeared on the main view screen, his forearms trembling and his reptilian features showing clear signs of shock and defeat. The proud alien commander who had arrived at Earth expecting an easy conquest now looked like a broken creature who had seen his entire worldview destroyed in the span of a few hours. "We yield," Kethver said simply, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. "We had no idea your species possessed such capabilities." Our intelligence reports indicated that humans were a primitive civilization confined to a single world, with technology centuries behind our own. President Kate Sullivan joined the conversation from the White House Situation Room, flanked by Secretary of Defense Paul Henderson and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Her expression was stern but not cruel, as she addressed the defeated alien commander. "You attacked our home without provocation, Admiral. You came here planning to kill billions of innocent people and enslave our entire species. What exactly did you expect would happen when you threatened humanity's survival?" Admiral Kethvar S. Translator conveyed his desperate confusion perfectly. "Our reconnaissance showed that your people used primitive chemical rockets that barely reached your own satellite. Your fastest ships required months to travel between your inner planets. Your weapons appeared to be simple projectile firearms and chemical explosives that would be useless against modern armor and shields." General Morrison exchanged a meaningful look with his staff officers before responding. Major Sam Roberts couldn't suppress a slight smile as he listened to the aliens' explanation of their intelligence failures. "Sir, should we tell him about the reserve fleets?" Roberts asked with obvious amusement in his voice. "Reserve fleets?" Admiral Kethvar S. Translator made his rising panic clear to everyone listening. "What reserve fleets?" Colonel Lisa Hayes activated the main tactical display, showing a three-dimensional map of the local stellar region. Red dots appeared throughout the star chart, each one representing a human battle group positioned at strategic locations within 50 light-years of Earth. The aliens had stumbled into the most heavily defended region of space in known history. "The ships you just fought represent approximately 5% of our total military capacity," Morrison explained in a conversational tone that made the words even more terrifying. "We've been expanding throughout this sector for the past 30 years, establishing bases and shipyards and systems your empire doesn't even know exist." Captain Betty Williams added her voice to the conversation from her position aboard the Deep Space Patrol vessel Ranger. She was currently stationed at the edge of the solar system, monitoring the approach of additional Zephyrian forces that had been detected jumping in from Empire space. "Admiral Morrison, we have 6 more Imperial fleets entering our sensor range," Williams reported with professional calm. "They appear to be responding to the 7th Fleet's distress signals." "Orders?" Morrison turned back to the alien commander with an expression that could have frozen liquid hydrogen. "Here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to contact those reinforcement fleets and order them to withdraw immediately. Then you're going to send a message to your empire explaining that humanity is now permanently off limits to Imperial expansion." Admiral Kethvar nodded frantically, his earlier arrogance completely replaced by desperate eagerness to cooperate. "Yes, of course, I will send the message immediately. But I must warn you that the Empire will not accept this defeat easily. They will send larger fleets with more advanced weapons." President Sullivan leaned forward in her chair, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who spoke for an entire planet. "Let them come, Admiral. Today's demonstration was just a small sample of what happens when someone threatens humanity's home. The next Imperial fleet that enters our space without permission will face the full might of our military, and I guarantee they won't enjoy the experience." The Zephyrian Admiral began composing his report to Empire Command, knowing that his words would shake the Empire's leadership to their foundations. He typed slowly, choosing each word carefully as he tried to explain how the Empire's most powerful fleet had been destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive savages. "To Emperor Zethkal and the High Command," he began. "The human species is not what our intelligence reports indicated. They are not primitive. They are not defenseless. They are apex predators who have spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of encounter. Avoid the Sol system at all costs. These humans have turned warfare into an art form, and they practice it with a level of skill and ruthlessness that defies comprehension." Back on Earth, President Sullivan addressed the nation from the Oval Office as celebrations erupted in cities around the globe. Her speech was broadcast simultaneously to every human colony and outpost throughout settled space, carrying news of humanity's greatest military victory to billions of people who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of potential alien invasion. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady and strong. Today, our species sent a clear message to the galaxy. We are not victims waiting to be conquered. We are not primitives who will surrender when faced with superior technology. We are human beings, and this is our home. Anyone who threatens our families, our freedom, or our future does so at their own peril. General Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the stars with a mixture of satisfaction and grim determination. The immediate threat had been eliminated, but he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Commander Alex Johnson joined him at the reinforced windows, both men silent as they contemplated what their victory would mean for humanity's future. Think they'll be back? Johnson asked quietly, his eyes fixed on the distant points of light that marked other star systems where the Empire held sway. Morrison smiled grimly, his weathered face reflecting years of military experience and strategic planning. Oh, they'll be back, Commander. The Zephyrian Empire has never encountered a species that could match their technology and exceed their tactical capabilities. Their pride won't allow them to simply accept defeat and leave us alone. And when they return? When they return, they'll bring everything they have, Morrison replied with quiet confidence. Every ship, every weapon, every warrior in their entire military will be focused on one goal, proving that the destruction of their 7th Fleet was just a lucky accident. Johnson nodded slowly, understanding the implications. But we'll be ready for them. Commander, we've been ready since the day our first astronomers looked up at the stars and wondered what was waiting out there in the darkness, Morrison said, with conviction that came from decades of preparation. Today, the galaxy learned something important about humanity. We don't just survive when faced with extinction. We don't just adapt when confronted with superior enemies. We excel at the art of war, and we practice it with a level of dedication that our enemies cannot comprehend. As Admiral Kethver's battered flagship limped toward the edge of the solar system, its hull scarred by human weapons and its crew demoralized beyond recovery, the alien commander continued working on his report to Empire Command. Every word he wrote felt like another nail in the coffin of Imperial expansion plans. The humans possess technology that appears to violate fundamental laws of physics, he continued typing. Their ships can teleport instantly across vast distances. Their weapons phase through our strongest shields as if they were made of paper. Their soldiers fight with a combination of advanced equipment and tactical brilliance that makes our own forces look like children playing with toys. Dr. Helen Chang monitored the alien retreat from her underground facility, her instruments tracking every aspect of the Zephyrian withdrawal. For 30 years, she had dedicated her life to preparing for this moment, and now she was watching. The fruits of humanity's greatest scientific achievement. The psychological impact will be even more significant than the military victory, she reported to the Pentagon leadership. Word of this defeat will spread throughout the Empire faster than their official communications. Every species under Imperial rule will learn that the mighty Zephyrian military can be beaten by a determined enemy with superior tactics and technology. Captain Amanda Torres secured her experimental vessel and began the process of analyzing battle data from humanity's first major space engagement. The quantum displacement drive had performed flawlessly, allowing her ship to appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly. But she knew that future enemies would adapt to this capability.